Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
You eating dinner, Mr. Boersma?
No, I am not, Miss Hart. I have developed this persistent and annoying cough, and for
Oh, wow.
whatever reason, chewing gum stops it from being quite as bad. So
Oh,
I had to
good.
make the choice, either coughing during tonight's meeting or chewing gum and looking unprofessional. So
No.
I chose to be less vocally annoying and more visually annoying.
Well, whatever keeps you from coughing, I'm sure that's the best idea.
Yeah, this cough has gotten a little bit annoying over the last couple of days.
Yeah, yeah. Sheesh. Turned off really cold this morning.
Yes,
I
it is.
decided to be fall, I guess.
It is fall. Summer is now over and done with.
Way over. Well, this will take a little while, I guess.
Right. All right. I'm going to call this meeting to order, everyone. It is 6:30 on my clock. Welcome, everyone, to the Sunnyside City Council workshop for today, Monday, November the 1st, 2021. As per Governor Inslee's proclamation, this meeting will be live streamed on Zoom only. We ask that you please allow one person to speak at a time, and I will call on every member to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask questions or make your comments. Mayor Guerrero has indicated that he is unable to participate this evening and has asked for an excused absence. If there is no objection, hearing none, Mayor Guerrero is excused for tonight's meeting. I will now ask the Deputy City Clerk Rangel to go down the roll call for attendance this evening.
Deputy Mayor Boersma,
I'm here.
Councillor Farmer,
Here.
Councillor Beeler,
Here.
Councillor Restucci,
Here.
Councillor Hicks,
Here.
Councillor Hart,
Here.
Interim City Manager Alba,
Here.
City Clerk Renteria,
Excused.
Interim Finance and Admin Service Director Horner,
Here, sorry.
Fire Chief Anderson, Police Chief Escalera,
Here.
Public Work Director Fisher,
I'm here.
Deputy City Clerk Rangel, I'm here, and one more time, Fire Chief Anderson.
Mr. Anderson's in Denver at training.
So he will be excused.
No problem with that. Budget. And Madam City Manager, I turn it over to you.
Well, I am so pleased to bring this forward to you. We have had obviously a strange 2 years with having COVID and uncertainty in the nation and uncertainty on how we would fare through this. And actually our city did much better than a lot of cities. So really the news is not gloom and doom. And so I'm going to read just one little section of the preliminary budget presentation. This is the city managers, interim city managers, basically, my memo to you. And I'm going to tell you, I read this today in Rotary and I had a hard time not tearing up. So if I start, just bear with me. So council and staff have worked hard to strengthen our finances. In 2019, the year ended with all funds showing positive balances and within its expenditure authority for the first time in more than a decade. Council adopted a plan to achieve a stable general fund balance by setting aside additional resources each year, and this plan has been successful. Ending fund balances in 2018 were approximately $306,000. In 2019, $1.8 million. In 2020, 2.18 million. 2021 is estimated to end with 4.3 million, and 2022 is on target to end with 5.5 million. I can't say anything more than I am so proud of the hard work that council has done, that the staff and all of the people that work for the city of Sunnyside. We have really been struggling for a long time, and looking back, we haven't seen this kind of fund balance for probably 20 years. And I think that it is the best thing that we can see. And like we've heard in other meetings, it's not time to run out and, buy the farm. It's time to still maintain a steady pace and keep our belts tight and make sure that we're doing what we need to do. But it is not doom and gloom for us. There is, some things that we can actually start looking forward to and expanding a little bit. So I'm so pleased to have that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, or Miss Horner. She did a phenomenal job pulling the budget numbers together. And really, I have to give her kudos. She helped me rewrite my budget message, because she said, Elizabeth, the outlook is so much better than what we're painting it. We need to make sure it's positive and that we're showing where we really are. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Horner, and she will guide you through this presentation.
Yay.
Thank you very much. I am going to just give a word of warning here. I have a bird, and he has been obnoxious today, and he's quieted down, but I apologize if you start to hear squawking. That's the one downside of working from home. So let me see if I can share my PowerPoint with you guys. Here we go. And you should be seeing it. All right. So we are just going to start off. Let me see here. Sorry, just 1 second. All right. This is the full memo from City Manager Alba to the council regarding the budget. So I'm just going to sort of not gloss over it, but just hit the high points, sort of summarize it as the city manager said, budgeting in general has had a lot of uncertainty since shortly after the start of 2020, actually. The way it has affected revenues is complicated. Many have gone down, but some have actually come up, like sales tax, as more and more people continue to shop online and have things delivered, which means we get the sales tax instead of the Tri-Cities or Yakima. Tax fluctuations have a big impact on our general fund, which makes up more than 40% of our total budget and supports some of our most essential functions like police and fire. Historically, the general fund has been pretty unstable here in Sunnyside and was the focus of the city's efforts to shore up the city's finances. The good news is that work is showing in our budget. The auditors recommend that the city maintain a fund balance between 15 and 20% of our annual spending, which covers about 60 days of expenses. For the city of Sunnyside, for our projected 2022 budget, that would amount to about $2.5 million. Right now, we're on track, as the city manager said, to end 2021 with around 4.3 million and to end 2022 with 5.5 million. And of course, this is the preliminary budget, so there could be changes in there, but I've been through it pretty closely, and I don't see any huge things that will have a big effect on any of these projections. While a big portion of that ending fund balance is going to be some of the ARPA funds that we have not appropriated, it is also due to the fact that we have just really tightened spending up, and in some cases worked maybe with less staff and resources than we would typically work with and than what we're used to. Also, it is due to growth. We have had a lot of growth, as you know, and we're continuing to see that. And that does directly impact our revenues by increasing our tax base adding user fees, people doing development, issuing more licenses and permits and things like that. But it also has a huge influence on what kind of resources we need to provide to be effective in serving the residents. We know that it is important to keep costs as low as possible, especially with our tax base being higher poverty than the vast majority of our state. This budget represents the city's efforts to be able to meet the increasing needs while keeping our spending conservative and operating on a balanced budget. So let's talk about the actual numbers. For revenues this year, we're mainly talking about the general fund, which is the fund that we've had the most focus on and that is mostly funded with taxes. And the utility funds are usually funded with user fees, and they're required to be self-sustaining by state law. But both of these sources of revenues have been abnormal in the last couple of years because of COVID. The user fees in the enterprise funds have fluctuated because of our inability to collect or to enforce collection with shutoffs and things like that. And our taxes have fluctuated, as we said, our sales tax going up, but property taxes have also gone up. So but we don't know if those things are going to last. So at this point, we're just doing the best we can to make the most stable projections as possible. But in looking at this, we are looking at seeing an increase in revenues from 21 to 22 of $1.9 million across all funds. Okay, our expenses. When we look at the general fund spending can be broke typically into a few broad categories. General government, which includes legislative, executive, finance, those kinds of things. Those are budgeted to come in, I think, around 2.3 million for 2022. Public safety is typically the largest expenditure for all local governments, really, with police and fire. And for 2022, we're looking at right around 9 million. The next few categories, economic environment, which has planning and development, social services, covers like the senior center, culture and recreation, parks and recreation, libraries and stuff. All of those things all together are looking like they're going to be about 1.15 million. And then that other decreases in obligations covers things like debt, transfers to other funds like the street fund, custodial activities, and capital purchases. And right now we're projecting around 1.9 million for 2022. This is also the area where our ARPA funds are being held. And as I said before, we have about 1.9 million right now that is still unappropriated. And then we are expecting to get that additional 2.3 million in summer of 2022. Let's see. So that's pretty much general fund expenditures. Okay, so personnel. For 2022, the city has chosen to budget in some additional positions that help meet the needs, as we talked about, of the city growing. And we spoke about that at the last workshop as well. The additional positions that we're budgeting are a second police commander, which I believe was already authorized but was not funded. An additional police receptionist, also I believe was authorized and not funded. An additional assistant fire chief, a new fleet maintenance employee, so we'd have 2, an additional maintenance worker in the water department, a new public works project manager, and then an additional seasonal worker for water. There are some other positions that have been requested and are still open. That includes the corrections position for the jail and the street crimes sergeant, which I did speak with the police chief today, and he really does want to see if we can get that funded, especially in our current climate where we're having an increase in violence. So he might want to take a moment to talk about that. Al, are you on? I don't know if you want to say a few words about that.
Yes, I am, and thank you so much. Well, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to bring just a couple things to light in regards to some areas where we are having a spike in criminal activity, actually in 6 particular areas. And one of those has kind of started things and have really built the momentum is basically our graffiti, our vandalism of property. And that is an above average of 45.3%, which actually equates out to 343 independent graffiti incidents in the city, which is extreme. And we've had that since the beginning of the year, which has kind of been one of several reasons for the violence that we are seeing today, is through that communication. Second is the motor vehicle theft. We've had a way above average on that at 63.9%, with 118 vehicles stolen to date, with a significant amount within the last 30 days. And the last 30 days have been crazy for auto theft, targeting particular vehicles such as Hondas, things of that nature. And it's just been a very significant problem. And very few of those have been what we call steamers, and the steamers are the ones where folks are letting their cars run and warm up and that kind of thing before they go to work, and then next thing you know, someone comes along and steals the car. And that has generally been our problem in the fall. However, that has not been a contributing factor this year. This year, it's a lot more targeted. Third is the simple assault. Our simple assault is up 22%, up to 166 individual assaults. It's probably the lowest in our categories right now for those types of crimes, but still a contributing problem and an increasing problem. And theft of motor vehicle parts or accessories, and these are the catalytic converters that you may have been hearing quite a bit about out here. And that is extreme. We are up 228%, and that is an awful lot. But it takes seconds. It takes absolute seconds to get underneath them cars, and they do what they do. They just cut both ends from that converter, and they remove them, and off they go. And we have had patrol cars that have been sitting down for surplus down at the city shops, and some other city-owned vehicles that have been victim to this as well. Our weapons law violations, now these are pretty disturbing in the sense that we are 55.6% above average. We are at 28 total firearms incidents, and those are weapons law violations, and we're up 28% in our gunfire incidents. And so, I've run the numbers on our gunfire incidents this year, and by the end of the year, we will have an all-time high record for the past 10 years. And we are currently sitting at 28 total. And last year we had 26 for the entire year. Specifically in the month of October, we had 11 gunfire incidents, which is an all-time high for any single month in the past 10 years. Now, we're going to be continually looking at this and digging into the commonalities further, but I just wanted to give you an update as to really where we're at. And we've had some significant gunfire. We had 4 or 5 alone here just in the weekend. And some of these are involving large caliber weapons of 7.62 rounds, which comes from an SKS or an AK-47. Those are big rounds, and nearly hitting at a 12-year-old girl that was laying on the couch, and thank God she was laying down on the couch, or she'd have definitely been a victim. That was on Saturday night. So this is really posing some alarming concerns, and this is where I have requested a street crimes unit back, well, quite some time now, but in 2018, it was actually the sergeant's position was approved, but it was not funded. And I'm requesting for that funding in order to get an unencumbered unit to get out here and start working some of this, as we have definitely got some significant gang occupation in some of our hotels here off of YBH, and where you have rival gangs taking over specific sides of two independent hotels, which are across the way from each other. And that's really posing an issue for Sunnyside. And so I just wanted to give you folks just some initial data, but the commonalities, we are putting those together. We are certainly running low right now on our manpower due to illnesses and bereavement leave and a few other things that are going on right now in the organization. But we're going to be facing some retirements here in the spring with a couple of long-term folks, and so we are trying to get ahead of things, and it's very hard to do so with the current manpower that we have now. But I just wanted to get this information out to you, and I'll stand for questions if you have any.
Okay, council members, I'm going to go down the list and give you an opportunity to ask questions of the chief. We'll start with Councillor Hart. Any questions for Chief Escalera?
Well, what I was thinking is this crime that we are seeing this past year, I think are part and parcel of what has happened during the pandemic, where people were kind of locked up and now they're getting out and doing things. And that's part of the reason why we're seeing so much violence, I think, up and down the valley. I think that within the budget, there should be a way to be what we have already kind of set aside. There should be a way to kind of prorate that around so we can get some of that done outside of what we've already approved or may approve in the future. But I understand that there's a crime wave hitting the Yakima Valley, not just our town, but up and down the valley. So it is a concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farmer. Councillor Farmer, you're muted. There you are.
Okay, I'm back. Okay.
You're back.
Okay. I don't remember exactly what it was called. I know I voted for it when we had our budget retreat, and I'll just call it the street crime sergeant, which was just what the chief was talking about. I think that's very critical for us at this particular point in time. All we have to do is look at our neighbors and see what they're facing also, especially Yakima. I am concerned though, is if we have a crime sergeant, are we going to have the personnel to have a detail that he's going to be able to supervise?
You know, and it's a great question. And initially, we have some brand new folks coming in. So obviously, they're in training at the moment. We have just tested for another position that needs to be filled yet. And that person more than likely will be brand new and will have to go to the academy. It'll take time, take a year in order to get that person out. However, we do have the manpower to put a street crime sergeant plus one additional, possibly even a second, to create that detail and get them going. But the number one thing is that if we get a couple of people out there minimum, that's better than what we currently have now. And the unencumbered, it's going to take an unencumbered unit to do this. It's not going from call to call it's not effective to get ahead of this game. So I am looking at our manpower, our current manpower, and here in the not so distant future, I think I'm going to be able to comfortably put a sergeant +2 on that detail.
Thank you. That's all I have right now.
Counselor Hicks.
Yeah, Chief, you're calling it a street crimes unit. Is this basically a gang unit? Because that's where most of our problem lies. Just from the tagging and stuff I've seen.
Yeah, I think that gangs are going to be a large part of what they do, but it won't be solely what they do. And so street crimes is maybe a little more appropriate to that, but just because the auto theft is also going to be a major address for them. Working hotels won't, that will also generate crimes such as prostitution and identity theft and things of that nature. So I won't lock them specifically to street gangs. However, you're absolutely right. It will be a large part of what they do.
That's the only question I had.
Counselor Beeler.
I've got nothing at this time.
Counselor Rasucci.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Chief, this street crimes unit, is it going to be a plainclothes unit, or are they going to actually work with the officers on the street, and will they be able to actually fill in if you need an officer to work a shift or something?
They'll actually be both. They will have times that clandestine will be the nature of the beast for that investigation that they're running, especially when they're working hotels. But if the majority of the time, I would say over 51% will be in a uniform, and they will be proactive in that sense. And obviously, we're going to have to watch a little bit on our approach, and we are adjusting to the new laws and the restrictions. So there'll be a lot more surveillance and that type of thing that's going to be part of our playbook here in the very near future.
Thank you, Chief. I only bring it up because of our previous conversations years ago regarding the gang unit that we had. And I just want to make sure that we don't run into that same situation that we ran into then.
Yeah, and the previous gang unit it was not supervised by a particular sergeant, and that's why I'm pushing the idea of the supervisor. It definitely needs to be supervised in order to direct their activity, but also to defend the type of work that they actually do against any interagency issues. And when it's formally designated, then that means it's formally operating. And so there will be times that we will have to pull from that particular unit if things get low enough out on the street.
Thank you, Chief. That's all I had, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I think he might be frozen.
Yeah, it sounds like he is, or looks like he is too.
Yeah.
Above.
He's coming in, but he's yep.
Hello? You
Now
can't
you're
hear.
there.
There we go. Now we can hear you, sir.
Okay, I don't quite understand what happens, but I'll blame my wife because she's in the other room. I'm concerned about the numbers and the increases of crime. And especially the weapons, the gunfire and that sort of thing, that has me very concerned. That's reminiscent of 10 years ago when we were seeing gunfights in the streets between gang members and police officers. And I really want to get ahead of that and make sure that does not become an issue again in Sunnyside. I know of areas around two cities that have managed to keep a lid on it. And I would like that to be Sunnyside. Am I coming through okay still? Okay. I do like the idea, sir, that when you said that you have the possibility of getting a sergeant and at least a couple of officers on detail as things set now, and as we contemplate the possibility of the budget and what we can do with that. And I would say from my perspective to go ahead and move in that direction using what you've got, and then we can see how we can add to that. That's the only thing I've got.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I think it's something that we can currently do. And I'll be checking with Mrs. Horner there to give me the actual numbers, but I have run the numbers before back in 2018, and it was quite inexpensive to promote and put somebody on that unit. However, those units are inherent with a 3% increase, and that's something I'll have to talk to her about and see how that affects our budget.
Good, thank you, sir.
I do think that it sounds like the council is mostly on board for looking at this more closely. So perhaps when we come back before, oh, sorry, city manager wants to say something.
What I was going to say is exactly what Ms. Horner was starting to say, is that it sounds like we should get ahead of this. And really, honestly, that's why I talked to Chief Escalera today and let him know to get a hold of Ms. Horner so that we could begin the process of running the numbers. I'm confident that we could do this within our budget that we have this year, so that we could get ahead of this, so that we're ready to go as soon as possible. I do not think this is going to be a large increase. We're not talking $20,000, $30,000. We're probably talking in the neighborhood of between $5,000 and $10,000 at the very. I mean, that would be extraneous.
I did run the numbers just to do a internal promotion, and that would be under $3,000 for the remainder of the year.
So I think that it would be worth our while to bring this forward at the next city council meeting on Monday for your approval to let us get this started. I think it's worth the $3,000 to get ahead of this. I think in the past, we kind of have said, well, we'll wait and see what happens. I don't think we're in that situation. And I don't think we want to wait and see. I think it's time to put the boots on the ground and get these people out there so they can start doing this work.
Well, and I would agree with you, Madam City Manager. What is the value of the life of a 12-year-old girl as opposed to $3,000 increase in our city budget?
Exactly. So I'll bring forward what we need to in order to get that approved at next city council meeting. And I know this is kind of last minute. Usually I don't spring stuff on you like this, but we just are really concerned. The chief really, said to me, Elizabeth, it's to the point where we have to get ahead of this. So I thank you. I will bring that forward. And in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, either direct them to me or you may contact Chief Escalera.
All right, thank you.
And with that, we'll turn it back over to Ms. Horner.
All right, so let me jump right back into where I left off, which is where we were sort of starting to look at the equipment replacement fund, which I just wanted to take a moment to highlight for you guys. This is and just for a reminder, this is an internal services fund that covers the cost of maintaining our current equipment and bills out those costs to the other various departments of the city. And then it can also be used to build up reserves for purchase of equipment as it needs replacement. Starting in January of this year, that fund had a zero balance. And at this point, we're on track to end 2022 with close to $500,000. That is earmarked for specific funds as they transfer money into that. But so far, I don't believe any of that is specifically appropriated. And we do have a list of requested equipment, which has not been approved and so far is not part of this budget. But I did want to leave it in here in case we wanted to revisit that. And then we also have some enhancement requests for facilities, which are not funded at this time. But again, we can revisit those based on the council's preference. So if there aren't any questions on the actual budget message, I can go ahead and move on to the meat and potatoes of the budget here, and we'll actually get to the numbers. So this is our city officials. I think you're pretty familiar with who we've got. And the city manager put together this newly designed organizational chart. And she was focused on being able to show you the people behind the positions. And the city staff members are more than just a number on a page. All of these people have dedicated themselves to providing services to the community. And so I wanted to give the city manager an opportunity to talk a little bit about her development of this chart and what she intends for it to mean for you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Horner. Really what this means, and this is the slide that really puts a face to the people that are in charge and that supervise so many individuals. And I'll let you know, this was a really hard one to put together. I searched the internet for a organizational chart that was called a team chart. So I wanted you to see who's on what team. I had so much trouble with this because the teams are big. If you look at the police chief, he's 25% of the page. He has a massive people that he has under him. Same thing with the fire chief. I couldn't list all the volunteers because I ran out of room. So they just get a bullet and an acknowledgement, but really there's a lot of people under these two divisions, and they serve such an important job in keeping us safe and keeping us in the right place. And that's what I really wanted you to see. I wanted you to see that, yes, we have all these people, but they're all doing jobs and they're all out there. They're all out on the streets or in the offices, doing the things that need to get done. And these are the people that, have really they've been waiting for us to say, okay, financially now we can buy you a vehicle that's not 15 years old. We can actually buy you something that is newer, or we can hire a person to assist you to get the work done that you haven't been able to get done. I'm going to kind of go back a couple years and talk to you about when we agreed to hire the second utility billing clerk. We had no idea the value in that. We knew that it would be important. We knew that it was something that was needed. But as we started to go through and look at every single account, so that means looking at every single account for, do they have their stormwater charge? Do they have their ambulance charge? Are they being billed the right number of garbage cans? Is their address right? And just things like that. It has been so helpful. And I know we have seen an increase in revenues by doing those audits. And we're not done with those audits. Those kind of audits, I think, will be things that we do continually over time, just because you always want to go back and check to see if you've made an error in data entry, or you've done something that was unintentional. But we have found a lot of things that are historical, that go back. You can't even find them because they were in Eden. And that second clerk has more than paid for her, her position. So I wanted to kind of bring that up. I think we're going to see that in some of our other areas. I think this authorizing the street crimes sergeant is going to be huge for the police department in order to get a handle on things. And I just want to say, this is the people that are doing the work. This is the people out there, doing what you need us to do. So that's why I developed this, and I see a typo that's going to drive me crazy. So I'm going to make sure that that gets fixed before the next one. And with that, I will turn it back over to Ms.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. All right. So I apologize. This part was not in the packet that I sent out, and that is my error. I was having some trouble getting this over to Deputy Clerk Rangel. And when I finally did get it over there, it didn't have the salary schedule in it. So I went ahead and added that. So just to go over, the salaries for city staff. Let's see. So as you can see, the non-represented staff is expecting a 2.6% cost of living increase. This is based on the average of the COLAs received by the separate bargaining units. Also, if you look here near the bottom, you'll see that there are 15 positions to be authorized, but only 14 to be funded. And that is due to the city leaving open the fire battalion chief position. And here we have our temporary non-rep staff, which is our seasonal temporary staff. The only change to this area is due to the increase in minimum wage. Below that, we have our IAFF positions, our firefighters and captains. This is one of the contracts that will be expired at the end of this year, and we hope to have it settled within the next couple of months. So right now on here, they don't have a increase pending the bargaining. For the police guild, this contract is settled with a 2.5% cost of living increase. Our Teamsters positions, our office clerical has a settled contract with a 3.25% increase, and our public works department has a 2.5% increase. And again, these are both settled. And then our police support unit is our only other contract that is open, and that will hopefully be settled shortly, and we'll have a COLA amount for them. And then our division supervisors is settled with a 2% COLA for 2022. Okay, so let's get into the general fund numbers. So this slide shows the comparison of revenues to expenditures for 5 years from 2018 to what we have projected for 2022. The darker color in each column is for regular revenues and expenditures, and the lighter colors at the top are for variable items like grants and one-time expenditures. As you can see, it's not uncommon for regular revenues to be outpaced by normal expenditures, but the differential is usually covered with the variable revenues, like state shared revenues and other one-time, oftentimes one-time development income. So people getting building permits and things like that, that aren't considered regular because they're unpredictable, but they come in every year. So let's see, as you can see, our revenue and expenditure numbers between 2018 and 2022 are not super far off from each other, which is interesting since it's been quite a few years. So this is our source of funds and our use of funds. So as you can see, the source of funds in the general fund is primarily taxes. The next largest thing is the intergovernmental revenues, which is like the ARPA money or state shared revenues. And then on the other side, on the right side, our largest expenses are salaries and benefits, which combined equal about 62% of the general fund expenditures. Right. This shows you the departmental breakdown of the general fund. The columns show you those categories of spending that you saw on the pie chart on the previous slide, separated out to the department. And as you can see with the little chart on the right, our public safety departments make up the bulk of these expenditures in the general fund. And then this is finally, here's a look at all of our city funds, the starting balance, the revenue, and the ending fund, or the revenue, expenditures, and then the ending fund. Sorry about that. If you look at the subtotals in the revenue and expenditure columns, you can see that revenues are expected to be 37.8 million and expenditures are expected to be about 35.5 million. And some of that is made up by that ARPA funding. But you can also see at the very bottom that we do have a balanced budget this year, and none of our funds are expected to end up below zero. So that is a good sign. And then our last slide here shows the 5-year comparison of fund balances for each fund. So the red towers in the front are the balances as of December 31st, 2018. And the back one is the projected balances for the end of 2022. You can see that we've had a pretty steady increase in all departments. You'll see there's a little hump in the sewer fund, and that is caused by the interfund loan that was taken out of that fund. So 2020 was the high point, but that's because they lent money to another fund. But otherwise, all of our funds are doing really well, are very very healthy, getting more healthy all the time. And that is all I have for you. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you guys so much for your time. And we will go back and make some of those changes in the public safety department before we come back next week.
Well, I want to thank you. Can you guys all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I moved so that I'm closer to my router. Maybe that'll make a difference. But I want to thank you for the time and the effort you put into this. It is nice from my perspective, and I'm sure from the rest of council's perspective, to see the potential, well, the ending fund balances that we're projecting for this year, and then what we're looking at for 2022. You know, when I was appointed in 2013, we had a ways to go. And I wanted to see this ever since then. And so to see this happening is very good for me. And I know I've said this a couple of times before, but I feel very good about that. So thank you for the work you put into this. Thank you for the numbers that we're seeing and your commitment to this. I want to give council members an opportunity to ask questions and make comments. So I'm going to go down the list, and we are going to start with Councillor Hart.
Am I unmuted here?
You are. Now you're not.
No, now we are, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want, again, I would like to echo Deputy Mayor Boersma's comments regarding balancing of our budget, and also the ending balances to set aside for that, making sure we have 6 months of or 60 days of wages to carry over, money to carry over at the end of the year. I think that was a remarkable amount of work and a remarkable dedication to making sure it happened. And I want to commend the staff, Ms. Alba and your staff, for making that a long-term goal. I think that what we have here before us is a doable, workable budget, and with the changes that we're going to make, I think we're going to be moving into 2022 at a really liquid space. So thank you again for your work. Thank you.
Councillor Farmer.
I too would like to thank the staff and the city manager for the work they've done on this year's budget, and for the work they've done in the previous budget to bring us back into financial success, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'm happy with where we're at. I appreciate the work that's gone into this, and I would like to thank the staff for it. That's all I have.
Councillor Beeler.
Yeah, I think the people that have worked their tails off on this have done phenomenal. And then when you really think about, you know, through all this, through COVID, through these shutdowns that we went through last year, now we have employees having babies, and we still have other employees that step in and get this job running smoothly. It's just a wonderful thing when everybody works together and everybody has the same goal. Let's make this a better city. Let's make this a more profitable city for the people that we represent. So thank you all. That's all I have.
Councillor Restucci.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I want to thank the staff, the city manager for the work that's done on this budget. This is my 18th year doing budgets for the city. And I have to say, over the last decade, the budget has gotten better and better every year. And this is definitely the best budget that I've seen in my term as a council member. So I'm very happy with the work that's been done. I believe, as Ms. Hart said, that this is a workable budget in 2022. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this budget plays out. So that's all I have right now. I'm sure I'm going to have some questions as we just got this document. And I'll be contacting the manager's office for those questions. So that's all I have, sir.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Hicks.
Yeah, like all my colleagues here, I'd like to thank staff and city manager for this budget. When I first got on, we were circling the drain with our budget, and it looks like we're starting to climb out, and hopefully we keep going that way. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. I do have a question. I know that we talk about the ARPA money from time to time as it
Always right when he starts to talk.
Yeah, he's got some bandwidth issues. We'll have to have a talk later. We can't hear you, Dean, if you can hear us.
Oh, maybe now, try. No,
notification, and I'm right next to my router. Can you hear me?
yes,
Okay. I have a question about the ARPA money.
okay.
Does that get to stay in our general fund, or as I understand it, we need to spend that for purposes, correct?
It has to be basically encumbered by the end of 2024 for expenditures through the end of 2026. And as we spend that money on various things, it'll be transferred out to other departments. We are able to use that on water and sewer and some tourism-y type things. There's a bunch of other things we can use it on. And as you appropriate that money to those funds, we'll move that around and expend it out of the proper fund.
And then let me add to that just a little bit. I know other cities have had newspaper articles that say, oh, we're buying a fire truck, we're buying police vehicles, we're buying this, buying that, buying this. I want us to be the slow and steady that wins the race. I think that there's going to be funding opportunities for things. We may be able to use this for grant matches for water projects or infrastructure. I think that just running off with our money and saying, oh, let's get it all spent is not the best way to do it. I think that we want to make sure that we leverage this money and we turn $2 million into 10. And that's what I'm looking for. So I'm not ready to come forward with a whole bunch of things. I want to make sure that we really, really have time to plan and discuss how we're going to spend the money and use it to the most advantage. Because I do think that having it be part of a match for a larger grant or a larger project, if we could get water and sewer to the Munson property, that would be huge. But we know that that's going to be through some kind of grant program, and we would have to, have a match there. So I'm hoping that those are the kind of things that we can look at. And like I said, I haven't been in a real big hurry because we do have 2 more years, or actually 3 more years to spend the money or appropriate it, and then 5 years to actually finish the project and get it complete. So we have plenty of time. There's no hurry.
Okay, that was my concern. And as we're going to get the funds coming in yet in 2022, but then they stop. And so I don't want to get us used to having this income, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and then we're struggling with our budget again. So I liked the answer you gave me. Thank you for that. I want to get the best benefit out of these funds as we possibly can for the city. So thank you for that. That's all I've got.
Okay, so next on our agenda, if I could have Ms. Rangel pull up the council meetings, I believe is the next item. So I wanted to bring forward on November 8th, we will have the Veterans Day proclamation, and then we will have the first public hearing on the 2022 preliminary budget. False alarm ordinance update. This may or may not come forward. Chief Escalera is still having problems contacting a company that he'd like to bring forward to assist with this so that it would limit the number of staff that actually have to do the work. So that we're seeing if we can get a hold of them. We have a crane repair being brought forward from Public Works Director Fisher. Our crane has broken and we need to get it fixed. And then we have a standard garbage rate increase. This is a part of the contract that is in there. And then the Allen Road Sanitary Sewer Improvement Award. So that has the bids have come back, and that's what that one is. Next item is November 22nd. We are going to have our second and final public hearing on the 2022 budget. And then we also have slated on that meeting personnel policy revisions. And so I'm going to let Ms. Horner speak to this. This is something that her and I discussed. And I'm just going to turn it over to her to let her expand further on that.
Thank you. I just, when I started here, and I know it's not completely uncommon, but it is not my favorite thing to have to codify any change in the personnel policy manual. It makes it difficult. And there are constantly federal and state laws that change requirements of conditions of employment and things like that. And I believe that it would be better served as a administrative policy. So I was hoping that maybe we could look at pulling that out of the code so that we can update some things that desperately need to be updated in there without having to codify all of the changes and then go back and recodify the changes, which is pretty spendy to do that. And it makes it more cumbersome to make necessary changes. And as conditions of employment are typically managed through the city manager's office, I don't think it's inappropriate to do that. So I was hoping that we would be able to take a look at that.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, sir. Sorry, I wouldn't unmute.
Oh, no worries. Ms. Horner, we should probably have a workshop conversation about that. Council took these actions for specific reasons because of issues with previous managers. And so I think before council gives up those rights, that we should have a conversation.
And I would agree with that. It might be a better topic for a workshop. And we can discuss why on either side, get the wherefores and the whys behind all of this.
You'll want to take a look at the past history of council and the reason why personnel policies were codified.
Okay.
And I'll let you know that this has been on my agenda and my plate for a very long time. Obviously 7.5 years. When I first started, I went, it's in the code, really. It's very unusual to have the personnel policy in, basically, if I don't follow FLSA the way we have it written, I'm basically breaking the law for the city of Sunnyside. And the FLSA laws have changed, and there's just been a lot of changes that we have not addressed or incorporated. And I do know the history. I remember the history.
Ordinance 2088, Madam City Manager?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
so you understand the nightmare that we went through as a city over that ordinance?
I do.
Okay.
And I was in a neighboring city when all that happened, and I read all of the newspaper articles and know personally what happened by us not having a personnel policy. And I know that it got to the point where city council had to act because it just was not getting done. No one was doing what they needed to do. I do think that there is a way to make sure that things get done. And a lot of it has to do with when your manager's not doing what they want you to do or you want them to do, then that's where you take the action that needs to be taken. And I would hope that I would fulfill that obligation, because honestly, it's in my best interest to make sure that we have appropriate personnel policies for our non-represented staff mostly. And that's who that really impacts. It doesn't impact the Teamsters or Police Guild or firefighters as much. It really only impacts about 10 employees, maybe 12. And the biggest issue that I'm finding, and I'll tell you, in our personnel policy, there are things that are contradictory. There is one section that says that employees will be on a salary matrix and they'll get a 2.5% increase and then a 5% step increase, and it's going to start at minimum wage. Well, when you do that, your scale has to have like 728 different entries to get to the salary of the city manager for minimum wage. And so there's just places where I think we've amended it and then not gone back and fixed other language. But I do think having it at a workshop would be great. It is going to now need to be in January because I feel like our workshop on December 6th already is pretty packed. We'll be having the 6th Street project update, preliminary plat code update, and then the city safety plan. Those are all big things that I think are important. This personnel policy revision, it can happen later, but I would like to know if we could put it on the January workshop for discussion.
I don't have a problem with that. Does any council member have an objection to that?
I don't have any objection.
No objections, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
All right, well, let's get that added to the January workshop.
Okay, we'll do that. And I appreciate it because I do think it's something that needs to be updated. And I think it is something that we can go through and we can still bring you back, you know, a policy. Once we get it out of the municipal code, we will bring you back adopted policies and you will see what we've got. We won't let this slide.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay, so December 13th, we have the 2022 budget adoption and then the preliminary PATS code update. You'll get the preview at the workshop, and then this would be where we would update the code. And then really that's all we have for right now for this information. And Janet, I'm not sure what our next item is. We've got our upcoming meetings. I think that's everything.
Are you able to hear me?
Can now.
Okay. I was talking away here and nobody was looking like they could hear a word I said. So anyway, it doesn't look like we've got anything else on our agenda. Again, thank you to everyone who put hard work into tonight's meeting. It was extremely helpful. And without objection, we are adjourned. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you, Deputy Mayor. You have a good
Good night. Thank
Dean,
you
if I
all.
need
Good
to-
night.
Dean, if I need to help you with your IT, let me know. I'll come over and we'll tweak your router.
That probably would be a wonderful idea. It's been giving me some trouble lately.
No worries.
Good job, you guys.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
No,